Today's project is a knitted pyramid pillow stand for your electronic devices. The small is a good size for a cell phone, medium is more of a medium tablet or e-reader, and the large is for a larger tablet. It has a small lip where you can place the phone or tablet, and because it's a pyramid, it'll give that item stability. Today we will be making a small one, although the other two sizes are available in the written pattern that is available for purchase on either Ravelry or Etsy or Lovecraft. The links are below. The supplies you will need for today's project: start with yarn, of course, worsted weight in whatever color you prefer. Our size pillow is not going to need a full skein. Size 8 needles, double pointed. If you prefer to use circulars, that'll work as well. Size H crochet hook, tapestry needle, scissors, and markers. A row counter will be useful, although you can do the same thing using pencil and paper and marking off your rows. You just need to keep track of your rows. And fiber fill to fill the pillow when we get to that point. Optional is cardboard shaped, cut in the shape of a triangle. This will go on the base. This is optional. It helps create a bit of stability, but it is not critical. To begin, we're going to cast on 19 stitches. I prefer the crochet cast on for this. It's not critical, but it just kind of looks better. So to do a crochet cast on, you take your yarn, you make a slip knot. You don't need really a long tail for this. Put the slip knot onto your crochet hook, and then take the needle, take the yarn, and you're going to wrap it around the needle. And then you are going to pull a loop through. Then you're going to take that yarn, tighten it up a little bit, and you're going to wrap it again around the needle. Pull the yarn through the loop. You're just basically chaining onto the knitting needle. So again, around the needle, pull a loop through. And you keep doing that until you have 19 stitches. So around the needle, pull a loop through, around the needle, pull a loop through, around the needle, pull a loop through. So this is 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 16, 17. This is number 18. And then the 19th stitch, you just kind of take the yarn, put it behind the needle, take the hook out, and put that on the needle and kind of twist it until it's in the right position. For the first part of this, we're going to be working back and forth flat for the first lip, and then we will build it into a triangle. It'll make sense when we get there. So I start with my first row, and that is just a purl row. So I like to knit that first stitch just because it's awkward. And then a purl is just through the front and just like that. So stick the needle through the front and loop it around and pull it through, and just all the way to the end. Now, because I don't want to lose track of what row I'm on, that was row 1. I inch it forward 1. Row 2 is the bobble row. So we flip the needle around when we start with the knit. So I'm going to knit 3, 1, 2, 3. Then the bobble. So we're going to knit into the same stitch. We're going to turn this one stitch into 5. So I'm going to knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl into this one stitch without removing it from the needle. So I'm going to go knit 1, purl, that's 2, then that goes back to the back in the same stitch, 3, then again 4 with a purl, and then behind it is 5, and at this point I can let that drop off the needle. Now I'm going to turn the work, and now I am going to knit those stitches again. So behind the needle and then wrap it around. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this is the wrong side of the work. Now I'm going to go back to the right side, and I am again going to knit all 5 stitches. So again, in through the back, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, I'm going to get rid of all these stitches again. So I'm going to take this stitch. So I'm going to skip this stitch here and take this stitch, and I'm going to pass it over the stitch. Then I'm going to do the same here. 2, 3, and 4. And then we want that to stick out to make the bobble. I'm going to repeat that a couple more times because this is going to require a few bobbles. So then I'm going to knit 3 again. 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to make another bobble. So again, that's 5 stitches into 1. So that's 1, and then purl it, 2, knit it, 3, purl it, 4, knit it, 5, turn the work and knit 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Turn it one more time, back to the right side, knit 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 5 down to 1. So pass those knit stitches over. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then I'm going to knit 3 more. 1, and just kind of make sure that bobble stays on this side. 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to make another bobble, knit 3 more, make another bobble, end with the last 3. The bobble row is what kind of keeps your device upright against the pillow. You can, however, also use a attached I-cord at the beginning or some other device for that. I just prefer the bobbles, and I really just hate making an I-cord, so this is the way I do it. We are now on row 3, so flip it around, and we are going to purl this row. So that stitch in the front. Kind of tighten it up when you hit the bobble stitches, because it kind of gets a little loose there. Not terribly critical, because if you have pretty decent tension when you're working, it's going to just kind of fix it, but do kind of keep track of what you are doing with that, and make sure those bobbles are on the other side, because otherwise the whole point of the bobbles will be lost. And that was row 3. Row counter, row 3. On row 4, we are going to increase our stitches from 19 to 22. So I'm going to increase a stitch, the second stitch in, somewhere in the middle, and then right before the end. And the increase does not really matter. I'm using a knit front and back just because it's simpler. So this is a knit row. So I'm going to knit 1, and then in the next stitch I'm going to knit into the front and the back, increasing it by 1. And then I am going to place another increase between the middle 2 bobbles. So I'm going to do it in the middle of that 3. And then right before the last stitch, so the second to the last stitch, I'm going to knit front and back, and then I'm going to knit the final one, and that leaves me with 22 stitches on the needle. Row counter, advance 1. Rows 5, 6, 7, and 8 are all just knit stitches. This is garter stitch. You can make this a bit longer if you have a very thick device. You can make it a little bit shorter if you desire. I find this is about the sweet spot. So this is just straight up stockinette. So you will be knitting, and this is the mindless knitting that you don't really have to pay attention to. Just make sure you don't lose track of which row you're on. And so I'm going to skip ahead until we get to the more interesting bit. I have completed up to row 8, and it looks like this. Row 9 is pretty much the same. It is just another knit row. And so I will begin. And so I've come to the end of row 9. Just knitting until I get to the second to the last stitch, and then this is where things get a little weird. I'm going to pick up my size H crochet hook, and instead of using this needle, I am going to knit this stitch with the crochet hook. Then I'm going to drop that needle, and I'm going to use this as the beginning of crochet cast on to cast on 44 more stitches. So this yarn goes behind the needle, and then I'm going to pull, stitch through. Now this part is a little awkward, so yarn behind the needle, pull it through. And at some point you are going to run out of room on this needle. So you can pull another needle. Through. And what I do is about this point, I take these stitches and I transfer them to another needle. This is where a circular needle would be easier. So then I make sure that there are 22 stitches here. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 22. And then I keep doing this around. Careful not to split the yarn, which I did, so let me do that over. Okay. So around the needle, through the loop, around the needle, through the loop, and you just keep doing this until you have 66 stitches total. And I will jump ahead till we get there. And here I've come to the end. That was 20. This is 21, and then just twist that on there and put that on the needle. This is where that circular needle is much easier. So now I should have 66 stitches total. This is a point where you want to double count, and that is row, now round 9. Before you get started, it is a really good idea to have this on a tabletop. And you want to make sure that this is all even. This is fiddly and a bit awkward, but it gets easier after this. So just make sure that these aren't twisted. So make sure that that stitch is kind of there and that this is not twisted. And then everything from now on is going to be worked in rounds. So it is a good idea to mark the beginning of the round so you don't lose track. From here on out, for this base, we are working circularly, and we are working this way. So arrange the stitches, the needles, the way you need to. Make sure that this is all straight. All right, it always takes me a couple minutes to get everything situated, but once you get started, it really is pretty simple. So I'm going to be starting in the base part that I've started, but the bobbles are down. And this first round is purled. So first stitch is a little awkward, and you kind of want to pull it tight. Yeah, didn't go through. Okay, let's try that again. And then I want to tighten that and purl all the way across. So what we're going to be doing is garter stitch, but in the round. So it's going to be, well, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl. Once we get to the end of this round, this needle, continue purling. So then that goes right in front. Tighten it a little bit at the change of needles. And you will continue around to the beginning of the round. All right, we are now to the knit round, round 10. If you are working on circular needles, make sure to mark every 22 stitches. So put a mark here, here, here. You are going to need that because all the instructions are per needle and it just kind of repeats. So the knit rows are all decrease rounds. So we start with a slip, slip, knit. So I'm going to slip one stitch as if to knit, slip a second stitch as if to knit. Then I'm going to take this needle, put it through the front of the stitches, and then knit through the back of the loop. Now, for later, take a split ring marker and on the other side, mark that bump. All right, so then I knit to the end of this needle. Then stitch marker I can just push out of the way, and I'm just going to knit. Until I get to the last two stitches. And then I'm going to knit those two together. And so that's just, I'm going to take my needle and go into both of the stitches at the same time and knit them together. I do the same exact thing here on this next needle. So again, slip, slip, knit, slip as if to knit, slip as if to knit, then put the needle back through the front of the stitches. And knit through the back. And again, mark that stitch. So kind of like where that bump is. And then again, knit to the end of the needle. So I skipped to the third needle, and notice on the third needle I also marked that first stitch. And so I knit to the last two stitches and knit two together. Now, why did I mark those stitches? You can skip ahead in the video to find out why when we attach the pyramid top to the pyramid bottom. It'll make things much easier at that point. Now we have reached round 12. At this point, I'm going to remove the row marker because it is no longer critical. At this point, we are doing garter stitch in the round. So this is another purl round. Now, unlike the knit rounds where it matters how you lean those stitches, with the purl rounds, it doesn't really, you can't really tell. So we're just going to purl 2 together at the ends of each needle. So I'm going to purl 2 together. And then purl to the end of the needle, and then purl 2 together. So this means every round we're decreasing 6 stitches. So everything kind of gets smaller in a big hurry, which is a good thing. It makes it easier at this point. And why it's a good idea to have, if you're doing circular needles, to have those markers marking, because you are going to be decreasing before and after each one. So I've got here, here, and then purl 2 together again. Do the same thing on this needle and this needle. Start with a purl 2 together, end with a purl 2 together on the needle, and continue on. So purl 2 together, perhaps, there we go. Tighten it. And then I will meet you at the end of this round. I've come to the end of this round, this purl round, and I'm going to purl those last 2 stitches together. And that is what you do basically until we finish this part up. So the next round is a knit round. So again, slip, slip, knit. This time you do not need to leave a marker, only on that first round. So slip, slip, knit through the front of the stitches. Slip, slip, knit at the beginning of the needle. Knit 2 together at the end. And continue around like that. So knit around, then a purl around, then a knit around, then a purl around, and you keep doing that until we get this all filled in, and we will catch up at that point. So we have 6 stitches left, and we're going to draw those all together. You don't need a really long strand of yarn for this. Use your tapestry needle, thread it, and then starting from the first stitch, so this was the 3rd needle, throw the yarn through those, through these, and the last 2. At which point you just tighten this up and wind in that end. Wind in this end and wind in this end. keeping in mind that this part is actually the bottom of our pyramid. This part is going to be inside the pyramid. So I like to draw the yarn through to this side and wind in the ends through here. So tighten that, and then kind of through the side, and then just kind of wind that in somehow. It's not really going to be seen at this point. It's going to be hidden underneath more knitting. We have finished the base. We are going to knit up from here. Now is where these markers become important, because we're going to pick up and knit along each of these ridges to make the top of our pyramid. Now, you can just pick up and knit, but I find it's easier to use a crochet hook, so that is what I do. So I find this here, and then I'm looking for these ridges. So starting here, I'm looking at these ridges. See how you have, these are the purl bumps. You're going to go into the front one of each. So each of these is part of the same stitch. So starting from here, I'm going to find that bump, and I am going to drop a loop and put it on the needle. And that is what I'm going to do along here. So I'm going to go along this line right here. So I'm going to go into this, just the front one, pull up a loop, put it on the needle. Next one, pull up a loop, put it on the needle. Now notice which way I'm orienting the yarn. So I'm pulling up a loop and I'm leaving this to the back where it's tightening. You want to make it taut, but you don't want to make it too tight because you are going to be knitting into this, and so it should have a little bit of give. So not that back one, but the front one, and through. And don't worry if you get these twisted. It's very easy to just knit through the back loop on the next round and it'll fix everything. And I just keep going through all the way until the next marker. And I'm almost at the end here of the first needle. And I'm at the second marker. And now I want to double count, and especially make sure that I kept everything in line. I should have 20 stitches. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, and the last two are 20. Perfect. Now I'm going to flip around and do the same thing between these two markers. So it's that stitch right there. Pull it through, and I can remove this marker at this point. It's just in the way. Pull it through and take a new needle. Pull it through. And do double check that you didn't leave any bumps there. If you do, you can always go back and fix it, and that's why we double count at the end of each needle, because it happens. It's very easy to lose a stitch here and there. This is the hard part. Once you're done with this part, it's all smooth sailing after this. So it's like, this is the only part this is the big part you have to concentrate on. And then after that, it's pretty simple. All right. And so there shouldn't be anything, and that's the reason there shouldn't be anything between the stitch, and it should be all knit ridges there instead of any purl bumps. And that's why we did the crochet cast on, so you have that nice edge there. And I'm almost to the end of this needle. I've got one here. Maybe. Sometimes it makes it easier if you go a hook size down just to get it in these stitches. Whatever works. And then let me double count. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, whoops. Try again. 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 19, and 20. Okay. And the final needle. So that starts about right there. And I can get rid of this. And this needle, same as the last two. A couple more stitches left. I can take that out. And double count. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 19, and 20. Okay, I have gone all the way around, and now I am ready to start knitting the pyramid. Okay, I like to mark the beginning of the round just to remind myself where I'm at. And round one is just a really simple knit all the way around. Be careful with this end. You'll want to tack that down, but it's easier to knit a couple rounds before you wind that end in. So this is just knit around. Be kind of careful in that first stitch. Make sure to tighten it down. And then just knit all the way around. So I'm to the end of the first needle. Again, if you are using a circular needle for this, you will need to mark the various needles. The first couple of rounds are just to kind of get you going. It is a little fiddly, these first stitches. So these couple of rounds are just to get everything established. And then you switch to the next needle and keep going. Almost to the beginning. And you will notice my row counter is back out. That was round 1. Round 2, same as round 1, knit all the way around. Now we are on round 3. You may have noticed I do a lot of things by 3s, and we're dealing with the triangle. So to keep things simple, the decrease round is on round 3. Unlike on the bottom, where our decreases were immediate, the decreases on these are 1 stitch in from the edge. So I'm going to start with a knit 1. Then do a slip slip knit, then knit to 3 stitches before the end of the needle. So you're going to be doing this on each needle. So again, if you're using circular needles, before each marker. Missed it. And 3 stitches before, knit 2 together, knit 1. Switch to the next needle. Repeat. Knit 1, slip slip knit, knit to the end of the needle. And I've come to the end of the 3rd needle. So keep in mind, I did a slip slip knit over here, I did a knit 2 together over here, I did a slip slip knit over here, and I'm going to do a knit 2 together over here. So each needle is the same. You just get to do everything 3 times for every round. Alrighty, and that was round 3. And I mark it as round 3 on my row counter. And now we're to row 4. This is the cable round. So I'm going to, this works really easily with double pointed needles. If you are using a circular, you will need a cable needle for this part. So we work to the end of the needle. And everything is just knitting all the way up. If you wanted to add another design to this, you could. But I find it's just easier to keep everything smooth. But personal preference. All right. We're getting to the last 2 stitches of the needle. We get to the last 2 stitches of the needle, leave those stitches on the needle, and this is going to be our cable. We're going to leave those 2 stitches on the needle, and we're going to knit the first 2 stitches from this needle. This kind of just gives the edges just a little bit of detail. 1, 2. Then slide these 2 stitches to the second needle, and we're going to repeat. So we just created a cable crossing right there. Oops, got the yarn stuck. Okay. So then these were the last 2 stitches on that first needle, but now they're the first 2 stitches on the second needle. And then I'm going to get to the end again. Almost there, to the last 2 stitches, and repeat. So this, slide to the middle of the needle. We're going to go through and knit the first 2 from the second needle, or the third needle this time. And 1, 2. Again, slide these to here so you can knit them off of that needle. Almost to the end. And this is technically the end of round 4, but we just kind of overlap it into round 5. So again, behind, take the first 2 stitches, and then these last 2 stitches become the first 2 stitches of round 5. Okay, so that was round 4. And we're on round 5. And you can see the pyramid starting to build slowly. It goes quicker because every third round we're decreasing by 6. So it makes it easier. All right. Round 5 is the easy round. Round 5, you just work even, just a straight knit like rounds 1 and 2. So I'll meet you on the other side at the beginning of round 6. I'm just about finished with round 5. Just knitting all the way around. And now we're on round 6. And we just start repeating everything. So round 6 is the multiple of 3. The multiple of 3 is the round where we decrease. So again, it is knit 1, slip, slip, knit, knit to the end of knit to the last 3 stitches of the needle, knit 2 together, knit 1. Same with this needle. Knit 1, slip, slip, knit all the way to the end, knit 2 together, knit 1. Knit 1, slip, slip, knit to the end. Last 3, knit 2 together, knit 1. That is the multiple of 3 rounds, so this is round 6. And this is just how we repeat it. So round 6, multiple of 3 is the decrease round. So there we go, slip, slip, knit. Knit to the end of the round, knit to the end of the needle, knit 2 together. Almost to the end of round 6. And last 3 stitches, knit 2 together, knit 1, and that was round 6. And then after the decrease round is the cable twist round. So again, I knit to the end of the needle, do the cable twist, and into the needle, cable twist. And reminder, just knit to the end of the first needle. To the last 2 stitches. Those last 2 stitches. leave them behind, and knit the first 2 stitches off of the next needle. Slip those 2 to the previous, or to the next needle, excuse me, and knit to the end of the next needle. Repeat. And almost to the end of round 7. The last 2. Knock it behind. Knit 2 from the next needle. And slip those back to the first needle. That was round 7. And then round 8. Round 8, you knit all the way around evenly. Round 9, decrease. Round 10, cable. And just repeat those over and over and over again. And this is slowly going to get narrower. I have now gotten to round 11, and the pyramid is starting to take shape. You can see the cabling at the corners, and it's starting to really look like a pyramid. I'm pausing at this point because if you're going to want to insert anything like cardboard to make the base a little bit more stable, this is the time to do it. It's as everything starts to close up, it gets tighter and the cardboard will not fit. So you want to cut out a cardboard roughly the size of your pyramid. It doesn't have to be exact, just pretty close. And I round the corners. And this is just covered in shelf liner paper. I've also covered them in duct tape just to keep them more stable, but that's not critical. And you just insert it. See how it's getting a little tight to put in there? If a couple more decreases and I will not be able to insert that. So you just kind of fit that in there and then continue on. The first couple of rounds after you insert it, things are a little stiff, but if you wait too long, it'll be too much. It'll be too narrow to get the cardboard in. So I did that right before decrease round. So this is my decrease round. So I'll continue on. Knit 1, slip, slip, knit. Knit to the end. And see, it isn't too bad being in there, but if you wait too long, it will not fit. So the other thing is you can start to stuff this. I would go another pattern repeat before starting to put some fiber fill in this. So I'm going to complete another pattern repeat. I have done another 3 rounds. I am up to starting round 15. And as you can see, that opening has gotten a whole lot smaller. So it is a good idea to start stuffing this. It just makes it a little bit easier later on, but just take some fiber fill and shove it into the corners. You don't need to do a lot. It doesn't need to be very stuffed right now, but it's going to be harder to stuff the bottom when this opening gets narrower. So if you stuff it right now, see, then this part's already stuffed, and as it gets smaller at the top, it gets easier to stuff it. So I'm going to go probably about 2 more pattern repeats. As you can see, 2 more pattern repeats, so I've only decreased by 12, and the opening is so much narrower. So stuff it a little bit more. And continue on. It does feel a little bit weird right after you stuff it, but it is easier to do it now than trying to get it into the opening, because in a couple more decreases, the opening gets so narrow that getting anything in there is impossible. Because at this point, you could absolutely not get that cardboard in there. And you can see the cabling up the side is a nice little detail. It goes much quicker as we get further along. Which is the fun of knitting pyramid. So that's the decrease round. That was round 21. And then it's the cable round. And because this stands up, it makes this a little bit easier. Definitely quicker. And yeah, this gets a little tricky here. Just keep with it, it'll be worth it. And that was around 22. And see how much narrower that is? Smaller. And then and knit even round. And again, top off with some more fiber fill before continuing on. Just a little bit. But right about here is kind of where you want to make sure it's pretty much where you want it to be, because what's going to happen is that next decrease is going to make things a lot smaller. So kind of overstuff it at this point. Feel how much you want. You'll be able to get a little bit into the next round, but not very much. So we are almost at the end here. So that's about, I could probably stuff a little bit more, but I think I'll leave it there. So this is, again, the decrease round. But there's only 6 stitches left, so it's knit 1, slip, slip, knit, knit 2 together, knit 2 together, I'll try that again, knit 1, needle 2, again, knit 1, slip, slip, knit, knit 2 together, knit 1, and one more time, knit 1, slip, slip, knit, knit 2 together, knit 1. See how much narrower that got? And so this is the last cable twist of the pattern. So again, stuff it just a little bit. So then it's just knit 2. Cable twist, those back on. Knit 2. Cable twist. Knit 2. Cable twist. This is the challenge in working with double pointed needles, but if you just keep track of where you are, this part doesn't last very long. There we go. Slip those on. And that was what, 25? No, yeah. Now notice, you really can't get anything in the top anymore. At this point, it's pretty much closed up. So that's as stuffed as it's gonna get. I mean, you can kind of shove something in there, but at this point, it's as stuffed, that's all the stuffing you're gonna get in there. Then one more even round, but this is just 12 stitches. And final round is a decrease round. Now in this round, because I can't really, one and then decrease and then decrease, because there's only 4 stitches, it's just a slip, slip, knit, knit 2 all the way around, which will leave 6 stitches total. So slip, slip, knit. Although, if you want to fudge this and just knit 2 all around, you're really not going to see the leans. And that's the only reason we do a slip, 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 knit as opposed to a knit 2 together. Not going to be critical here. But I rather like doing a slip, slip, knit, so I just keep doing it. And slip, slip, knit. Knit 2 together. And we're done. Grab your scissors, grab your tapestry needle. You're going to need, you're going to cut this and pull this around just like we did at the bottom. So you don't need a lot, but enough to be able to complete to complete this. So go ahead and snip that. Yarn's all done. Thread the yarn to your tapestry needle, and we're just going to draw through all the loops. So right there, through, right there, through, and right there, and through, and tighten it. And that last bit of cable twist kind of gives that top its little distinctive flare there. And then all you need to do is wind this in. So I just kind of hide it, kind of pull it through a couple more stitches just to make sure that that stays attached. Don't split the yarn. Just tighten it, and then kind of work your way through. Hiding this end is, you can't find a back side to this, so you kind of have to, I just kind of do this, through that a couple times, just so that the yarn doesn't come undone any place. That'll hide it, and then you can kind of go through into another spot and do the same thing. This will just kind of bury it. If you're using a variegated yarn, it's a little bit harder, but, and then there. Then to just bury the rest of this end, I'm going to take a crochet hook. This is not an H, this is a G, or you can go down to an F or a D and just kind of somewhere in there. Go all the way through, because it's just fiber fill, so you can go through it really easily, and pull. And pull the rest of it, and you're just kind of burying that tail in the fabric, or in the pyramid. And there you have it. Thank you for following along. Links to the pattern that you can purchase are below this post, and please follow along and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed our little project. See you soon.